welcome everyone. This is Andre's Restart. Sorry for a little bit of a minor delay there and perhaps some minor technical issues, but hopefully we are good to go. Tonight, we are going to be talking about this possible official Switch 2 name leak. It may not be it, just keep that in mind, but it might be. And so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Mario Day, the news we got yesterday, and everything surrounding that. There is some stuff apparently leaked about the sequel to the Mario Bros. Movie that's been confirmed to be coming out April 2026. We're talking a little bit more about Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door. There's some extra little details that have surfaced since they gave us the release date for this May. And we'll be talking about that stuff, Luigi's Mansion. We'll be talking a little bit about Mario Kart. And whatever else you guys bring up in the chat. It's a Q&A. It's a back and forth. It's me and you all. That's the general plan for the evening. But if you guys could let me know how everything is looking and sounding. When I started the stream, it was kind of hiccuping a little bit. So I'm hoping it's not really lagging at all right now. Hopefully you guys can hear me clearly. Let me know if the background music is too loud and overpowering, or if it's the right level, or if you want me to adjust it in one direction or the other. So let me know while we're still early on into the stream. But that's it. That's my beginning spiel. So how are all of you? Let me pull up this chat here. Hello there, Anthony Smith. Hello there, Joe Nil Gamer, All Hail Megatron and Godzilla. Good evening. Super Chris, good evening. Sand Talks Games, what's up, buddy? Netweed09, you are early? Well, yeah, you were earlier than me, apparently. So there you go. AB James. Reshi Ramp, hello there. Celtic 14. Zipper rumors are total BS. He acts like he has seen the games before anyone. Not believable. Yeah, let's talk about that. So, I don't really want to attack anyone or anything like that. We've talked about Zippo before. Last time we talked about Zippo in a video was when his account was taken down. So there was a question of, does this add any validity to his claims? Because his account was taken down. And so we discussed some things he had been talking about lately, and his account came back. Apparently, just because some people flagged him as saying some very inappropriate things which were untrue, and that's why his account was taken down temporarily, and it came back. Right now, some people are talking about this Luigi's Mansion 4 rumor from Zippo. Apparently, Luigi's Mansion 4 is going to look vastly better than Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart on PlayStation 5. I do believe Nintendo is likely putting together Luigi's Mansion 4. I believe Next Level Games is likely at least gearing up to start development if they're not already in the middle of development for that game. I mean, Luigi's Mansion 3 did incredibly well. The Luigi's Mansion theme was featured in the Mario Bros. Movie. We have another Mario Bros. Movie that's on the way that's involving both Mario and Luigi. Yeah, I think that there's definitely a good reason to follow up Luigi's Mansion 3 with 4. You look at how we're getting Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. I think that shows that Nintendo wants to keep Luigi's Mansion relevant. I think it's become a big series for Nintendo, and I'm excited for the success of Luigi's Mansion. I'm pulling for Luigi's Mansion 1 remaster on top of the 2 HD. Maybe like remember the Pikmin 1 and 2 that came out on Switch, on the Switch G-Shop, like a few weeks before the release of Pikmin 4, and they were basically just the games almost entirely ripped from the I guess the Wii version, because they had the little motion control enhancement added on top of the base GameCube version. Like, they could do something like that for Luigi's Mansion and just upscale it. Like, you don't have to go in and overhaul the graphics. Like, just take the game, upscale it into 1080p, basically like a Dolphin emulation, like a very basic Dolphin emulation, and just give us Switch controls. And people would love that. Sell it for $20-$30. The original Luigi's Mansion, we have that. We would have Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and then 3. That would be amazing. So I still think a Luigi's Mansion 1 basic, like a very, very, very basic remaster, could be shadow dropped maybe in an April Nintendo Direct, or announced in the lead up to the release for Luigi's Mansion 2 HD this June. So I'm optimistic on that. In terms of Luigi's Mansion 4, I think it's happening, but I don't think that Luigi's Mansion 4, from a technical perspective, is going to be. I mean, it's and then there's that Nintendo magic, there's that Nintendo art design, there is the genius of Nintendo devs and even Next Level Games, who's now a full on Nintendo dev. And I do think that Luigi's Mansion 4 is probably going to look incredible. I don't even want to compare it to another game. I would say Luigi's Mansion 3 already looks incredible. So I expect it to look amazing, but let's not compare it to a PS5 game. Like, in some ways that may look better, right? You can make the argument that Breath of the Wild is more impressive than Horizon. It isn't from a like pure graphical perspective. Like, it's not even close. Horizon's a much better looking game. But if you look at like just the level of interaction with the world and how the world feels a lot more natural and immersive in Breath of the Wild compared to Horizon, that's where it sort of sets itself apart. And so I do think there are special things that can happen with Switch 2 games that could compare favorably to modern generation games. But I just don't want to start making those kinds of comparisons. I don't think that's a good idea. But we'll see. We'll see how good it looks. I bet it'll blow us away. So it'll be special. Having Hope 5 has renewed their membership, been a member for 13 straight months. It's been so great having you around all this time, Having Hope. And Having Hope says, hey, y'all. Hey, Andres, do you think we will get a direct next month? I do. Yeah, I definitely do. Now, I think there will be a Nintendo Direct next month. I do not know if there will be a Nintendo Direct next month. Let me make that clear. I have no idea. Like, I don't know anything, right? I just think. Now, the reason I think that is there's several reasons. One reason being, well, we kind of need to get a Direct soon. We need to get a direct, like a general Nintendo Direct soon, because after yesterday, the only games that were officially slated for 2024 have been dated. So we now have the total roadmap, or at least we think we have the total roadmap for Nintendo's first half of 2024. But what comes after June? What are the July through December games? There's no info out on that. We don't know if Metroid Prime 4 is coming out this year. We don't know if there's anything else coming out this year. Is there another Pokemon game? There's still a lot of question marks for the second half of the year. And so as we approach that moment, a Nintendo Direct is bound to happen, or at least we need to get a series of updates or announcements for what's to come in the second half as we approach that time, before that time comes. So the closer we get to that time, the more likely it is to happen. Now, we didn't get a general Direct in February, and so far it's not looking like we're going to get a general Direct in March. And so those have been the months when we tend to get a big Direct during the Switch era. And while March is still possible, if we pass both February and then we pass March and it hasn't happened, well, when's it going to happen? April is like the next best bet, right? And what's interesting about that is that it coincides with a few different credible sources that have been indicating that the plan is for a Nintendo Direct to happen in April. Universal Nintendo, PH Brazil, they've heard about a Direct in April, and Universal Nintendo has even specified that when I say Universal Nintendo, I mean Necro Felipe specifically. He said this on Family Boards. He heard that it's going to be a general Direct in April, which just makes a lot of sense. And the reason that the timing is different this time around, I think it all has to do with the big transition over to the next generation. Whether we see Switch 2 I think we're going to see Switch 2 this year, but in terms of it coming out this year, most likely not, based off the reports. More likely early next year at the earliest, we shall see. But anyways, point is, the rumors indicate so, the timing of things indicates so, and I would say that with Nintendo not giving us any real new significant details for Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake yesterday, when they gave us small little clips. There was a little bit of extra promotional material out there, some new media, some new screenshots, but we basically just got release dates for both these games. And so with that in mind, there is kind of an opportunity to have significant trailers for both releases that have new information on these releases in an April Direct. So the Thousand Year Door is coming out May, and what we've actually learned Let me just go ahead and share this with you. This is already kind of pushing me into some of the topics I had planned for the evening. So I'll just share this with you because it's more Mario news, and I think it does kind of hint at what's to come for a direct. Because here I'm on Nintendo's website, right? The game is coming out May 23rd. That's a Thursday. We'll talk about that a little bit later into the stream. But when we scroll down here, right here they say 20 years after the original game on Nintendo GameCube system, this version for the Nintendo Switch system has revamped graphics and a suite of additional changes that make the game easier than ever to enjoy. So the big thing here is suite of additional changes. So this means there's actually new things about this game that they have yet to reveal. And with that knowledge, we now have reason to think that they could provide a compelling trailer for us, and they haven't. So with the game coming out May 23rd, having a direct in April where you showcase this game more fully shortly before release makes a lot of sense. So for those kind of wondering, oh, well, they kind of just already told us about Luigi's Mansion and Paper Mario, there's nothing else to be said. There is something else to be said. And I would say getting the dates yesterday, it does two things. One, it kind of gives us some bit of news for March to kind of carry us into maybe like an indie world later this month. But then that sets us up for a bigger news event, April, where we get a big direct and we get news on the games for the second half, but also details on Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and likely also something else about Luigi's Mansion 2. I don't know if Luigi's Mansion 2 is also going to get new content, but they may throw out another trailer that just kind of shows more visual enhancements. So I definitely think there's going to be a direct. April is looking like it makes a lot of sense, and I think we are definitely getting new. Well, we already know for a fact there's new content in Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. We just don't know what yet, and I think we're going to get a trailer that will showcase that. So, yeah, I think that for sure. And a direct, it's coming, just not yet. April, though, is when I think it's going to happen. Taker610 with a super chat. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Taker says, Dread and Wonder are both unknown new games announced in June and launched in October. We could have a similar release this year announced in June. Technically, yes. I am not expecting a normal Nintendo Direct in June, as we have gone in the prior years. If we're talking about getting a big April Nintendo Direct, I think that changes the pattern. We've already experienced the change of the pattern. We got a big partner showcase, a typical Nintendo Direct in February. That's never happened before. It wasn't even a mini. We've never seen a partner showcase that is not a mini. This was branded as just a partner showcase. The pattern's already been broken. I think all kind of bets are off. I mean, I don't want to say all bets are off. That's probably not totally accurate. But I think we should go into this year with the expectation that the typical standard and pattern that we have seen is not going to be applied. And this is why, there are other people out there that have argued, oh, why even bother having a conversation about it? It's always a February Direct, because it's not always a February Direct. There are different possibilities. Things can happen differently. Sometimes we get news in January. Sometimes we get news in March. Sometimes, like this year, it's very different. And so, I think it's fair to consider different options, and maybe there will still be a June Direct. I don't want to outrule it, but if we're getting a big April Direct, I'm not expecting the typical big June Direct as well. It's kind of one or the other, and I think by June, that will have been too late. That said, part of the rumor with the April Direct also talks about Switch 2 news, like a reveal in June. Now, would a reveal just be kind of like Nintendo making an announcement saying, hey, it exists, get ready? Or would it be like a teaser trailer? Or would it be like an actual presentation that's showcasing it more so? I don't know. But what I find interesting, though, all right, put on the tinfoil hat, right? Tinfoil hat time. I think this is something that should not be, what I'm about to say, I do not think we should expect. But it's just something that crosses my mind, so I'm putting it out there. if it were not for the Switch 2 reports, right, from Nikkei, Eurogamer, Video Games Chronicle, Bloomberg, like it's kind of overwhelming how many credible venues have reported an internal delay to early 2025 at the earliest. So I don't think we should expect what I'm about to suggest, but I'm just kind of putting it out there, right? Like if these reports didn't exist, I would still think Switch 2 is coming this holiday. And if that were to be the case, having kind of like a reveal presentation in June would actually be really smart. But with it apparently coming out early next year, I'm kind of skeptical of I'm skeptical of this idea that we would get like um a big reveal presentation in June if the system's not coming out until March. Like that's a big window of time. Now, I would love to argue, and I'm going to right now, that Nintendo should start divulging details about this because one, leaks are going to start happening sooner or later. The Game Developers Conference is later this month. We may start getting some interesting Switch 2 rumors that are coming from real developers, and that may be interesting, but Nintendo may want to combat that by making official announcements sooner. But then also, if we are to wait this long, maybe they should just give us something to chew on, something to be excited about, to have discussions on, as opposed to, well, here's I mean, some of you might be excited for a Tamagotchi Life remaster. I won't be. But, if they just kind of give us just remasters all year with no significant new content, nothing to theorize or talk about, I don't think it'll be good for the overall like momentum and conversation. Nintendo can turn it around whenever they want. All they have to do is show us like a big new Zelda or Mario game, and all of a sudden that changes like immediately. But in the meanwhile, I think it would be nice to kind of give us a little bit of something to chew on. Will they do that, or will they have like a bigger kind of window from reveal to release? We shall see. They can give us like a very subtle kind of announcement, but if we're talking about this rumor that's talking about a June reveal, because it's that June period where we typically get significant news from Nintendo, I'm kind of thinking, well, what if there's more to show than just like a trailer, right? Obviously, we'll see what happens, but it's just very curious to me. So I'll at least say this, Taker, to kind of close out on this kind of question. Historically speaking, we always get significant news during June. So even if there's a direct in April, I'd be very curious on what they do. I don't expect a typical general direct for Switch 1 in June if we get one in April, but I think something's going to happen. All right, next super chat here from Sam Talks Games. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Sam says or asks, would YouTube even have any knowledge about Switch 2 at this point? They are not a dev team, so I'm a little confused. So I think a lot of people are going to jump to the conclusion that Google wouldn't have any sort of information on this. But I'm not saying they do, but Google's a really big company, a really big tech company that is heavily, tied into the industry and heavily tied into, just our going-ons and interactions on the internet. They own YouTube, right? And YouTube's a big piece of Nintendo's marketing. And so, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they were somewhat privy to what's going on with Nintendo behind the scenes, if they're already communicating with different third parties. Third parties isn't necessarily just the people that are making the games. There are other companies involved for different reasons. So I wouldn't say that there's no way they wouldn't know at this point. That said, just taking this opportunity to jump into the rumor, if you guys missed it, I'll just show you. There is a survey that's going around on YouTube. I'll show you right now. This is a survey, right? And so if you have YouTube ads, I have YouTube Red Premium, so I never see YouTube ads. But if you hit YouTube ads, sometimes you'll get a survey. And this survey asks, which of these gaming products would you consider buying? PS5, Xbox Series X, Switch attached, and none of the above. So this is it. This is the potential leak. Switch attach. What is switch attach? So the thinking right now is switch attach the name for the Switch 2? Yeah, I'm gonna talk about this for a little bit. Let's put a poll. Let's put a poll before I kind of give you my thoughts on this. Is switch attach? Let me put that in quotes so it's clear what I'm referring to. Is switch attach going to be the official name for Switch 2? I'm curious what you guys think here. So, I'm gonna go out on a limb and maybe be wrong. I'm going to say it's not the final name, but I do think there is a chance that it could be, a good chance it could be, but it might just be like a placeholder name, could be like a code name. It's possible that this is just like a placeholder, right? Like or it could be some sort of error, maybe AI generation, maybe user error, maybe a typo. These are all possibilities with this survey. Surveys don't. We've seen the past surveys suggest things that come from official places. We're like, oh, I guess this is real. You guys remember the Mario Odyssey 2 survey? We never got Mario Odyssey 2. And so I think, does that mean the survey was false? I mean, it's possible that the game was going to be made at one point and then canceled or pushed or delayed. Possible. It's also possible it was just a suggestion of a possibility, but not necessarily the case. Could have been a placeholder. There's a lot of different angles for how these surveys can be misconstrued and provide something here. So I think I'm hoping I'm a little biased here because I don't want it to be the name. I'm hoping it's based off some error or it's just like a placeholder name. And here's the interesting thing: the way I worded the survey, the way I worded the poll, is Switch Attach going to be the official name? I worded it in that way because we may not even, Nintendo themselves may not know what the final name is yet. They might. I'm not sure. But what I'm trying to indicate here is that there is a process to this, right? And there's going to be a period of time where they're debating what the name should be. And maybe they're testing out different ideas. Maybe they have certain, groups of people that they test out the name with, right? Maybe, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying this is what they're doing, but what if this is a intentional leak and this is a survey so they can kind of gauge what Switch Attach is supposed to be? I don't think that's what it is. I don't think this information is leaked intentionally. From my perspective, I don't think Nintendo intentionally leaks anything. I could be wrong, but I don't think we've ever seen evidence of an intentional leak. Sometimes people like to think that Nintendo or some other companies may have done intentional leaks in the past, and this may be a way to drill a pipe or sort of gauge the fan response to get feedback in that way. I don't think that's how Nintendo does things. So I don't think it was an intentional leak, but I'm just throwing out possibilities here. I think it should be noted that initially, according to the report, Switch 2 would have been revealed this month. And so this could be some remnant of that. But regardless, even if this is possibly a name, they may not have finalized the name yet. So if you want to go out on social media and say Switch Attach sucks, I don't know. Maybe Nintendo reps will be paying attention. Maybe like, oh, well, this sucks. Maybe we shouldn't do it. Right. So, maybe there's an opportunity for the name to be different. But let's play the hypothetical, right? And let's just say the name is correct. This is what it is. Switch Attach. I would be concerned because attach makes it sound really, really very much more like what Nintendo didn't want, what people treat like the Wii U as, right? It almost sounds more like an add-on, Switch Attach, than the Wii U did. So one of the big problems with the Wii U when it came out was that many people the masses, right? Like the not the hardcore gamer that pays attention to the news articles and watches videos and live streams like this one, but like the typical people that just when they're going to the stores, they see something interesting, or they see a commercial on TV during the Super Bowl or what have you, or the Emmys or Oscars, and like, oh well, that's cool. Maybe I should get that for little Timmy. And so the soccer mom goes to Target looking for a new toy for Christmas for little Timmy, and they see a Wii U and they're like, oh, well, little Timmy already has a tablet. Little Timmy already has a Wii. We don't need to get him a tablet for his Wii. And that's what they thought the Wii U was. That was a big issue then. A lot of people were not aware of that the Wii U was a Wii 2. It was a sequel, the next generation Nintendo platform. And so the Wii U just had Wii with U. Like, U doesn't necessarily imply it's an attachment. That's just how people kind of interpreted that. Switch attach literally has attachment in the name. It's almost synonymous with peripheral add-on. So that's really playing with fire here in terms of that marketing branding issue. But I also think it should be noted, if Nintendo does go with this name, that the Wii U had issues that went way beyond that, right? They didn't have compelling software from the get-go. They didn't do a great job of making it feel like a meaningful purchase compared to those who had a Wii already. There wasn't like a big killer app early on. Nintendo, the way they branded it for just for kids, which I think Nintendo had been tone deaf for quite some time. And when they transitioned to Switch, they really fixed things. Because if you go back and you watch that first look trailer, if you look at a lot of the early promotional material for Switch, it was geared more towards people in their 20s and 30s, us, right? Or basically people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. That is the primary audience of Nintendo Switch. It's not little Timmy. It's little Timmy 10 years, 15 years in the future. So Nintendo kind of realized that with the Switch era, and I think they appealed to the right audience early on. And what you'll notice is after the last few years, they then started transitioning to reaching a more broad audience, getting the little Timmys, right, to be a part of the Nintendo Switch community later on. And so I do think there needs to be kind of like that transition of marketing. You first appeal to your most hardcore centric fan base, right? The us in our 20s and 30s and 40s. And then after that, once the Switch 2 has been out for a while, then you start appealing to the wider audience, maybe after a price drop or there's more games out there, things of that nature. So with Switch Attach, if that ends up being the name, if Nintendo markets this for the hardcore, or the Nintendo core, I should say, and they have a strong lineup of games, and what the system is, the way it's conveyed and branded is something that feels like a meaningful upgrade for a lot of people, then they can get away with the name Switch Attach. I'll tell you that I personally think that Switch Attach would probably be a better name than Nintendo Wii. Wii is such a ridiculous name. Wii U is still a ridiculous name because it still has Wii in it. But Nintendo got away with that. Nintendo got away with the new 3DS XL. It's just so confusing. Or new 2DS XL. Like the whole new series, I thought it was stupid. Like, it's just straight stupid. Oh, what did you get? Oh, I just got myself a new 3DS XL. It's dumb. I think it's really dumb. But they still did it. They made that decision. Maybe I'm dumb for thinking it's dumb, but I know I'm not the only person that feels that way. And so, my point with this, though, is that there's a history of Nintendo having silly names, sometimes still being extremely successful, other times not so. I don't think the name itself is going to spell the end for Nintendo. No. I hope the name's wrong, because I think they could have a better name. But if it is, it's not the end of the world. Now, if Switch Attach, I'm going to get back to the chat, by the way. Don't worry. I know there's some more super chats, and I want to get to the live chat. I will. I'm trying to deal with this topic first. But with Switch Attach, right? Like, let's say that this is the name, right? What does it imply about the system? What is it attaching to? And so that's interesting. Something I've thought of is, what if the dock is different? Like, what if the dock isn't something you have to like kind of fit in? It's more like almost kind of like, when you have those charging pads where you just put your phone on top of it and it charges automatically. What if that's what the Switch Attach is? You just take your Switch Attach and you attach it to the whatever sort of pad it has, and the pad is the new dock. So there's maybe some sort of magnet where it fits on snugly, right? It's easier to just kind of plop it on. It charges, it works, and there you go. It attaches. So it's a bit more of a seamless process there. And maybe through Bluetooth or something. And because it's charging, they can still output the visuals, and it can still, do everything. Now, I wonder if Bluetooth is fast enough to transfer the game to TV correctly, as opposed to USB-C. I'm not sure on the specifics of that, but I'm just throwing out ideas here, right? And now, I think there'd be more to Switch Attach than just there's a charging dock station. I think it would be more than that. There were the patents of the second screen attachment. Maybe there's something to that idea. I think the idea of having a console that maybe it does have two screens from the get-go, one that does facilitate DS and 3DS and Wii U virtual console, NSO, or ports, and that's valuable to an extent, not significantly, but a little bit. But beyond that, dual screen gameplay, or rather two screen gameplay, is really cool for cooperative play. And so the idea could be more so building off of what Switch was trying to do by having co-op right out of the box, having two controllers right out of the box. So they may have revamped Joy-Cons that you can still attach to your Switch, but also there's a second screen that attaches as well. And what you can do is literally have two screens and two controllers right out of the box. That would be interesting. I don't feel like that's financially feasible. I don't think that's necessarily what they should do, but I do kind of feel like the name somewhat implies that. So that would be interesting. If Nintendo could find a way to make that work, I would definitely be willing to give it a try. I mean, I'm a hardcore Nintendo fan. I'm probably going to give whatever they put out a try, right? But I think it could be potentially successful. So that would be kind of cool. I still don't believe this. I don't think this is the actual name, but it might be. So having the conversation. But coming back to the chat, let me catch up on some of these super chats here, and then I'll get to the live chat. Free Metroid Hat was super chat. Thank you very much, Free Metroid Hat. Really hoping for Metroid Prime 2 and maybe 3 in the next Direct, hopefully in April. Prime 2 is my favorite game of all time. Also, how likely do you think it is to see Prime 4 before June? So, two things. The Metroid Prime 4 thing, the whole Metroid thing is very interesting because Jeff Grubb heard that Prime 4 is coming out this year. And Jeff Grubb also said that he heard Metroid Prime 4 marketing is supposed to kick into gear in May. All right. But then with the partner showcase, when Epic Mickey was revealed, when he was reacting to that, he mentioned that because he saw Epic Mickey, his source had told him about that, also told him about the Metroid Prime stuff. And so he believes Metroid Prime 4 is definitely coming out this year on top of that. I look at that and think, I'm not sure. I think that because I've been on the train of thought that Metroid Prime 4 will be closely to Switch 2, closely tied to Switch 2 marketing. I'm not saying it's going to be 100% a launch title. It may not be a launch title, but I've kind of felt launch window. But that was with the assumption Switch 2 is coming up this holiday. And maybe that has changed, right? I've told you guys before that there's a few different reasons why I think there's going to be there was at least a cross-generation version being worked on for Prime 4. Maybe that cross-gen version still comes later down the road. But that's kind of one of the reasons why I've kind of thought that Prime 4 would be tied to the launch window, because I've thought I've been thinking for a while, for a few different reasons, that it was going to be a cross-gen version. Maybe that's been canceled, pushed back. Maybe that's been separate. Maybe Prime 4 is coming out just for Switch 1 this holiday. There's a lot of different parts to that. But I think it should also be noted that Jeff Grubb Um, in the past, whenever he's heard things, has always been a little off with timing. And I don't want to blame Jeff Grubb. I think Jeff Grubb is a fantastic journalist that has a lot of good sources and is a really fun, cool person. So if Jeff Grubb ever sees this, I think you're really cool. You should be on the podcast sometime. But I'm just saying that like with the Metroid Prime Remastered stuff, it came a few months later, right? It just kind of always seems like, for example, we were talking about Switch 2 coming out this year, and it's looking like it's coming out a few months later. It's not a Jeff Grubb thing. It's a just whenever we hear about things in advance, it always seems like they come out just a little bit later than we hope or expect them to. And so when it comes to Metroid Prime 4, I wouldn't be surprised if some of Prime 4 is being saved for the first half of 2025 to tie into the Switch 2 launch window, and there will be a cross-gen version. So I'm not going to assume Prime 4 is a holiday 2024 title. That might be nice. It could help to fill up the year, for sure. I do think there are other options, though. And but this is where I'm going to kind of come back to the Prime 2 and 3 thing. I think regardless of if Prime 4 comes out this holiday or if it comes out in the first half tied into the Switch 2 launch window, I think it makes tons of sense to start talking about Prime 4 this year. You could start talking about an April Direct, and maybe the marketing campaign still does start into May. Like after the April Direct, Nintendo starts to talk about Prime 4 consistently on Twitter and things of that nature leading up to release, be that in October or November this year, or like March, April, May next year. Either way, I think, we'll start getting details about Prime 4. And I think this will also, involve Prime 2 and 3. I think Prime 2 and 3 should still come out this year. If Prime 4 is coming out this holiday or if Prime 4 is coming out early next year, regardless, I think we should still see Prime 2 and 3 really soon. Could you argue that maybe they put out Prime 2 and 3 like right before Prime 4, kind of how they handled Pikmin 1 and 2? Yeah, maybe. But on the flip side, I think it makes sense to put out something Metroid to keep the Metroid fans conversing, talking more so, especially with a Prime 4 gameplay reveal soon. But also, we need things to fill up this year if they are saving their big titles for next year. So, I think that Prime, we have a good chance of at least seeing Prime 2 this year, maybe also Prime 3. And regardless, I'm still on the train of thought that we are going to get Prime 4 details, like juicy, interesting details, like a trailer or a couple trailers throughout the year, maybe even a gameplay build or demo, not playable, like a treehouse or something of Prime 4. Like I think we're going to learn a lot more about Prime 4 this year, substantial details, regardless of when it's coming out. That's what I think. We shall see. All right, next super chat. Power Mad UK, thank you for super chat. Power Mad says, at least it's a better name than the Switch Pro. I agree. It is a better name than the Switch Pro. Kind of. Yes. Because it's not implying a mid-gen refresh. It's implying it could, some people might interpret it as an attachment, which is a concern, but it's at least unique. So I'll say that. Karen Buckley, thank you for the super chat. Karen says, when do you think the next 3D Zelda will be announced? Tears of the Kingdom was announced a little over 2 years after Breath of the Wild. A lot of you know that I'm on the Ocarina of Time remake hype train, right? I think, I've been theorizing this. I've been predicting this. It has nothing to do with the rumors. It has to do with literal interviews and historical precedent from Nintendo and Nintendo executives. I think Ocarina of Time remake is happening. And if not Ocarina of Time remake, some type of ambitious Zelda remake, like a 3D Zelda. I'm not talking about 2D Zelda. I think there's still something going on with that as well. But I think that 3D Zelda remake, I think it's going to be Ocarina of Time, is going to happen for Switch 2. It's going to be an early Switch 2 title. And it's going to be a visual showcase for the system. This is a theory. I think most of the rumors are bogus, but I think the theory is quality. And so with that, I think that kind of holds us over for a little while longer before they need to showcase the next 3D Zelda. I think it's way too soon to show off the next 3D Zelda. I think Nintendo made a mistake by showing off the sequel to Breath of the Wild when they did. I I mean, I'm happy they did in a way, but also I don't think anyone thought that when they showed us that trailer back at E3 2019 that we were gonna have to wait until May 2023 to finally play the game. I don't think anyone thought that. Now, obviously, COVID impacted things, and that could, that definitely changed things. But when you announce a direct sequel, the implication is a quick turnaround, not a long, long, long turnaround. So it's just kind of, it is strange that we had to wait that long for Tears of the Kingdom. Like I remember where it was at back at summer 2019. I had zero expectation to see anything 3D Zelda like us. I had no expectation of seeing a sequel to Breath of the Wild announced at that presentation. I was ready to wait a couple years more before hearing about anything major Zelda, because at that time Nintendo was already showcasing that they prefer to announce something and have it come out within about a year or so, if not a little bit less, a little, like, give or take a few months, right? And so what they did with Zelda, that was, it led me to believe, oh, okay, well, this is coming out next year, it's gonna be a big holiday title, and that was so wrong. I don't think they're gonna do the same thing again. They might. There's a history of Nintendo showing off 3D Zelda very early on. Maybe we don't have to wait a long time, but I would say maybe by 2026 we could maybe hear an announcement of the next Zelda. That, I don't think that's a stretch. Like maybe like a summer direct, or like, hey, so the next 3D Zelda is in development. Like that's possible. If not summer 2026, summer 2027. I think by summer 2027 we hear about it. I guess, but I guess I would just hope by by that point, by summer 2027, that will have been more than 4 years since the release of Tears of the Kingdom. They better have something to show by that point, and you would hope, if we're optimistic, right, if they have a better turnaround since COVID's no longer a factor, that we get the game by holiday 2028. That's reasonable. We had to wait longer between Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, and between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, so it's a little optimistic, but we'll see. Anyways, looking at the poll I put up, it's been up for 21 minutes, so let's end the poll. I asked, is Switch Attached going to be the official name for Switch 2? And 78% said no. Of the 106 votes, we got an extra vote right at the end. 78% said no. Now, what I ask you guys who voted, how much of that do you think is how many of you are saying no because you don't want it to happen? And how many of you are saying no because it doesn't make sense to you? Because I do think, sometimes we vote with our hearts and not our mind. But that said, our hearts and minds can be aligned, right? So I'm just putting it out there. I'm just kind of curious on your feelings on that. Me kind of trying to catch up with the live chat here. I'm gonna focus on ads for now, but I'll try and pick and choose a little bit. The real J-Stone added me. I think Switch 2 hardware could be at 1440p docked and 1080p undocked. That would be awesome. I'm okay with that. 60 FPS consistently. Imagine the next 3D Zelda. It's 1440p 60 FPS open world. My heart would be so warm and happy. I'd be jumping for joy. That would be cool. And it looks like even better than that Wii U tech demo. Open world. And it's very interesting to be kind of thinking about like the future of Zelda. I don't think we've seen the best Zelda game yet. I think the pieces are there, right? I think, Tears of the Kingdom is getting a lot of flack right now, and I think a lot of that has to do with just the natural Zelda cycle. I recognize that a lot of Zelda content creators, right? I'm a Nintendo content creator. I cover Zelda, right? I think I I made just as much, if not more, Zelda theory videos than a lot of other Zelda content creators. So I feel like I'm part of that to an extent, right? But I've recognized that a lot of Zelda content creators, a lot of Zelda content creators I love, by the way, there's a lot of them that um, don't feel that great about Tears of the Kingdom. Um, I think a lot of this has to do with the typical Zelda cycle. I think Zelda fans in general hold Zelda with such high esteem, to such a high regard, and we kind of look at it under a microscope, right? We nitpick, and it's so hard for everyone to be satisfied with, and it's impossible actually. And so I think a lot of this conversation makes the game out to be worse than it is. But I think there's also a little bit of hey, we waited an extremely long time for Tears of the Kingdom, and this is what we got. Now, what we got is a big game. It is huge and dense with content, but a common sentiment is that it kind of feels very samey, a little repetitive, not as fresh as we would like, not as much variety as we would have liked. And I think some of it kind of comes from, hey, this is taking place in the same world. But then, a lot of people make comparisons to Elden Ring. I made a video talking about my initial 30-ish hours of Elden Ring. I'm playing it right now. I was actually playing it right before the stream. Love the game. I don't think it's better than Tears of the Kingdom. I'm not sure yet, actually. I'm playing through them. But one thing that Elden Ring, or just the Soulsborne games in general, are really good at is combat. But just me kind of thinking about my experience with Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, other open world games, I do think that we've seen a lot of the elements that could, if they were to come together in the right way, we could see ultimate Zelda game, like the greatest game ever made. Like I think it's there. I think Nintendo has made strides with story. I know not everyone agrees, right? I think maybe it would be better if they had a story that was told in real time. And I think Tears of the Kingdom made some steps in the right direction, and hopefully with another Zelda game, they'll just kind of have a different feel and overall way of telling the story and exploring the world. It's going to be a different thing, right? It's not going to be a follow up to these games. But with kind of thinking more so about how to tell a compelling story, a compelling and fun and engaging story within an open world setting, but advancing the combat with more variety to the environments while still building upon these amazing, adventure elements and physics and weather system and all these mechanics all together. I think that there is a really special game that could be made that would be hands down like the best game ever made. Like I think it's there. The potential is there, and I think they could do it with the next Zelda game. Of course, I think that every time. Right, I thought that with Tears of the Kingdom, and I still think Tears of the Kingdom is really good. For many people, Tears of the Kingdom is their favorite game ever. It's definitely in that conversation. It's a fantastic game, but I think with the next Zelda game, with better hardware, with probably not needing to invest as much time with optimization, because the system will probably be able to, it'll be they'll be able to create a game that can more easily fit their vision, is what I'm trying to say, with better hardware, and with better performance. And because we assume it's going to be a new Zelda game set in a new world entirely, it's going to feel more fresh and new. And so with all this in mind, and then their next effort at an open air style game, they'll have an even better polish and better understanding of what to do with this world. And by kind of getting a reset, not being restrained by following the conventions set by Breath of the Wild, they may be able to handle things even better than what they did, than how they evolved and pushed things in Tears of the Kingdom. And so I think, that also in conjunction with just seeing how the industry has advanced, right? You look at games like Elden Ring, for example, as I brought up earlier, the Zelda team pays attention to those things, right? I think the next Zelda game is going to be really special. They always are, but I think the next Zelda game I have high hopes, very high hopes. It's also there's gonna be a huge hardware jump for us, right? Because think about this for a moment. We've been playing the Wii U since 2012, and they started talking about that hardware since 2011. The Switch is only barely more powerful than the Wii U. And what year is it? 2024. And by the time we see the next 3D Zelda, I was speculating 2026 at the very extremely earliest, but more likely 2027, 2028. That's going to have been more than 15 years. Yeah. Exactly. Right. By the time we see the next Zelda made for hardware, like we're just talking about a multi-generation jump here. I'm gonna feel with for the next Zelda game. Like it's gonna be vastly more technically impressive than Breath of the Wild. That's the point. So I think we're in for something very exciting, but we're not there yet. It's gonna be a couple years, so we got to be patient. Moving on with the chat. Let's see here. Mr. Aztec Gamer, hot take, but I want Metroid to get a big push as a series this year. Maybe Prime 2 in April, Prime 3 in September, and Prime 4 date Switch 2 launch. So, okay, I'm, I have not completely given up on the possibility of Prime 4 being a launch title. I'm not saying it will be, but I have not given up on the idea. And just to kind of bring up patterns, right? We've seen Nintendo, there's been a lot of conversation about Prime 4 being in a similar situation to Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild. These are Zelda games, though. But these Zelda games were coming out near the end of a generation, and they were cross-gen titles. And Nintendo was developing this really big, ambitious game throughout these generations, right? And so it's not Zelda this time, it's Metroid. Granted, Metroid's not as big as Zelda, but does Nintendo see an opportunity where Zelda can be where Metroid can become very successful as a launch title? I think maybe. Now, if this is done in conjunction with, say, maybe for example, Mario Kart. Like, what if we're looking at a scenario where Metroid Prime 4 and Mario Kart 9 are the 1-2 punch for the launch window of Switch 2? If you don't want to envision Prime 4 as a day one title, maybe it's the April title, right? And Mario Kart's the March title. But wouldn't that be a hell of a start? And then maybe 3D Mario is actually saved a little bit later into the year, maybe closer to holiday 2025. I'm not sure how they're going to be positioning these titles, but I think there's something to the idea, honestly. AB James points out Endless Ocean, Luminous, and Paper Mario Thousand Year Door in May. 2 exclusive in a single month. That's true. Endless Ocean's coming out on a Thursday, May 2nd, and Thousand Year Door is coming out May 23rd, a Thursday. And let me also point out Luigi's Mansion 2, I think, is coming out June 28th, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm not. I think it's June 28th. I just want to double check. I'm pretty sure it is. I can't type. That's fine. When he's typing, when you can not type. I just want the release date. Tell me the release date. June 27th. So not 28th. Well, no, it is the 20th. No, I'm looking at March. Then June. Yeah, it's 27th because it's a Thursday. So to start the next fiscal year, the next fiscal year begins April 1st. The next 3 Nintendo games we know about are all coming out on Thursdays instead of Fridays, which apparently is more in line with the rest of the industry. And I guess this will give people one extra day to kind of get their game going into the weekend. Because Nintendo used to have releases on Sundays, but I guess they decided to go back because, well, it gives people an actual opportunity to buy the game, to play and enjoy on the weekend, right? And I think that would benefit sales. And so now they're doing Thursdays, which is very interesting to me. But I think, it's cool. I mean, at least we're getting games another day earlier. So that's cool. And then what does that mean for midnight releases, right? Could people be playing them on Wednesdays now? Depending on the region? Yeah. Cold Brew, what's up, buddy? I am also pumped for these next few months. I think it's going to be very interesting how things are done, for sure. Tall Show. It's probably from a memo someone actually left on the YouTube poll, but it has yet to be fixed. Yeah, you could be right, Tall Show. Maybe it could very well be some kind of error, and it's not actually the name in any way for Switch 2, this Switch attach. Link exists. Ask me. I mean, something like this happened with Switch VR, which wasn't fully correct or fully wrong. Exactly. There's some hint of truth, but it doesn't really amount to what the final product will be. Sam, I do kind of agree. Switch 2 is optimal. I think it's just extremely clear, and people will just know what it is, and there's no debate there. Now, the only reason why I would argue that Switch 2 is not maybe the best name for Nintendo to go with is if they have some sort of innovation that they really want to sell the hardware with, and so they would want the name to reflect that. That's a scenario where I think not going with a number makes sense. Um, that's it, really. And so if there's something to this attaching idea and they really want to sell that, maybe that has something to do with the name or not. If the system's basically, hey, this is just a more powerful, better Switch with better features, maybe Switch 2 is the best name. But if they have something that kind of changes the game a little bit, that really kind of enhances our experience that they want to kind of center around, then that should be featured with the name. All right, moving on. AB James asked me if it was to even consider to be called Switch Attached, that would mean this console, after all, has some kind of new gimmick. Yep, something to do with attaching. Yeah, which could be fun. Maybe there's a second screen, like that would be cool. It feels like something that would just raise up costs for the system, maybe unnecessarily. So I'm skeptical, but it would be cool. All right, let me. I have a few more super chats I need to get to here. Did I get to this one? Nope. Okay, Sam Talks Games. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Another one. Sam says, to me, Tears of the Kingdom is a very frustrating masterpiece. It's one of my favorite games ever made, but there's so much it could have gone better as well. There's a lot of games that I played. I'm like, man, what if they did this? Like right now, I think a lot of people, it's interesting, right? Because you look at the Tears of the Kingdom discourse, and there's a lot of people who are like, oh, well, Elden Ring did this better. Elden Ring did this better. But I'm playing Elden Ring now, and I am loving the game. Let me make myself clear. I am loving the game. But there are things that you do in Elden Ring, or you can't do in Elden Ring, that make me think, oh, well, this would have been cool. Like right now, I'm in this swamp area, right? I'm trying to find a glintstone key so I can enter like this academy place. And I've done a lot of side questing, so I know it's pretty early on with the story still. But I'm going through this area, right? And there's a lot of buildings. I can't go into any of the buildings at all. Zero access to them, right? Or there's a lot of parts where you can't even climb on something. It's like an invisible wall. And so these are just little things that aren't a big deal, that are normal things from most games. But when we start making comparisons to something like Tears of the Kingdom, where everywhere you see within the map, you can interact with and explore to an extent. You can get on there, right? If there's a building, you can go inside of it. Elden Ring, there's a lot of exploration, but there are limitations in that way in terms of exploration, right? Elden Ring's more focused on combat, and the boss variety is way better than Tears of the Kingdom. But the exploration in Tears of the Kingdom is way better than everything. If we're just talking about the mechanics in terms of exploring and moving about and interacting with the world, there is nothing that compares to Tears of the Kingdom, in my opinion. But it's just different experiences. Do I wish, though, that Tears of the Kingdom had the boss variety and the combat depth of Elden Ring? 100%. If it had that, the game would be... It would truly be GOAT status to me. I think they did some great things, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I want a master mode, because I want them to, a master mode would be an interesting opportunity to kind of give us more difficulty options with Tears of the Kingdom, and maybe stir it up a little bit, remix the combat of scenarios a bit, give us a little bit more enemy variety, even though they would just be changing the classes. But if they give us they could maybe do a little bit more than that, I want that. But yeah, there's no such thing as perfection. It doesn't exist. Taker with a super chat here as well. Thank you for another super chat, Taker. Taker says, could a live action Zelda movie mean a more realistic approach for the art style in the upcoming game? I'd like the idea of a Wii U tech demo approach. My opinion, I don't know. I don't want to dig too deep into, oh, will the Zelda movie and the Zelda game be closely related to each other? I think there could be something to that idea, but it's going to be in a very subtle way. Kind of like, you look at Mario Wonder. Is Mario Wonder like the Mario movie? It is not. But you can make the argument that it involves a lot of important characters from the Mario movie in the games. They are very expressive. And so, there's, in some ways, like what it does is, for those that are fans of the movie or fans of the game, you could play the game or watch the movie and be like, oh, that reminds me of that. And so there could be a little bit of that in there. And I think a lot of that just happens inherently by making a Zelda game and by making a proper Zelda movie. If you're going to make a proper Zelda movie, there's probably going to be a lot of Zelda references that will remind you of Zelda games. And if you make a proper Zelda game, there's going to be a lot of Zelda lore references that could remind you of the movie. But I don't know if it's going to be extremely intentional. That all said, I do think that the next Zelda game is going to be, there's a spectrum, right? And I don't think they're ever going to go like photorealistic with Zelda. I just don't think that's the direction they would want to do. And I don't think it benefits the art style. But I do think they will lean more in the realistic side of the spectrum. You look at Twilight Princess or the Zelda tech demo as like the most realistic Zelda, which still are not realistic, right? They're very surreal. I think they will lean more on that side, and so there will be less of a cel-shaded focus. I think that's what we're going to see, and a lot of that will be because it'll be more feasible thanks to the more powerful hardware. And so that's going to be interesting to see. But then also speaking on the movie, I would like to say that my opinions of the movie, like, yes, it's going to be live action, which means it's not going to be a full CGI movie. We're going to see like actual like human bodies and faces exploring, a natural environment to some extent. That doesn't mean they can't have CGI built in. It's one of the reasons why when I've talked about the Zelda movie, I've kind of talked about it from the perspective of the The Hobbit. Because if you look at the Hobbit movies, right, it is technically live action, but there's a great deal of CGI involved with the live action. And so what does this do? It helps to show a very surreal, fantastical, magical world. And that's the direction I think the Zelda movie needs to take, right? So a lot of people look at live action and think, oh, well, it's not going to have kind of like that fantasy, or rather that kind of magical feel that the Zelda games have. I think they can, but it's going to be kind of a hybrid. It's going to be live action, but there'll be CGI moments, a lot of CGI moments kind of built in to make it feel natural. That will help to sort of render and showcase a fantastical, magical, medieval Zelda world. So that's kind of my expectation of the visual approach for both the future movie and game. THX1138 or thanks 1138 offered 2 super chats. Thank you for these super chats, buddy. Thanks 1138 here says Mario the Thousand Year Door May 23rd is because Memorial Day's weekend. Is because Memorial Day weekend. Okay. And then thanks 1138 says here with the second super chat, thank you. Luigi Mansion HD is June 27th is the first week of summer. Yep. No better way to enjoy the summer days with a nice, cool evening playing some Luigi's Mansion 2 with hopefully a friend. Yeah. That would be cool. I really enjoyed the co-op in Luigi's Mansion 3, so I kind of want them to have co-op in Luigi's Mansion 2. Yep, that would be fun. That would be very fun. Alrighty. So where are we here? I'm checking something real quick. Got it. All right. I'm cutting back to the chat. 10,000 Noodles asks, no info on what the attached gimmick might be. We don't have any info. But like speculation wise, Yeah, but we've had a patent that shows Nintendo had an extra screen to attach, right? Um, you just think about how the Joy-Cons already attached to the Switch, how the Switch attaches to the dock. I can see where they can really build around attachments moving forward. Moving through the chat. Adam Key, seeing an updated model of the Happy Mass Salesman would be awesome. Dude, one of the reasons why I'm so excited for this theory, this possible hypothetical Ocarina of Time remake, is that I think it would excite the Zelda fan base, right? It would give us something to really be excited about while we wait for the next big Zelda game, because I do think it's gonna be a while. And a visual remake would be cool, and maybe it would be an opportunity to even slightly modify some things in the game world that could have lore implications, and that's gonna be fun too. Kind of exploring that, talking about that. But also I want to transition a little bit because I do think that a 2D Zelda game might not be that far off. Now, I'm kind of wrestling my head right now, like what I think makes more sense. Because I think in the second half of this year, we are going to have a significant Zelda release. Now, when I say significant, I don't mean the next 3D Zelda. I don't mean an Ocarina of Time remake. I think those are all Switch 2 things down the road. But what I do think is that maybe we finally see the rumored Wind Waker Twilight Princess HD, or like either we get like those games, or we get a new 2D Zelda game, because I think it's about time. A Link Between Worlds came out, I want to say 2015. It's 2024. We got Link's Awakening remake back in 2019, but it was a remake. Grezzo has only worked on Jet Dragon over the last few years. It's a small game. It's been a few years. It's been a little bit already. They could be well into development for the next 2D Zelda game. And I think, like, you look at how Mario Wonder came out last year, right? Like, what if they have 2D Zelda this year? I think that'd be really cool. Like, let's kind of, if you had Metroid Prime 4 this year, that would be like, it would make it really good, right? But like, we have a rumor that I haven't totally given up on yet, right? I still think a black and white remake by ILC by Ilka could come out this year. By the way, we recently got news. Ilka, the company that made Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, the Gen 4 remakes, they've apparently, let me double check here. I had something pulled up on it. So apparently, Pokemon Company has registered a new subsidiary called Pokemon Works, and it's located in the same building as Ilka. So it looks like they're putting together some type of company that's about Pokemon Works, and that could have to do with maybe they want Ilka to be a more consistent company making Pokemon games. And if that's the case, it strongly implies they've been working on something else outside of Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, which lines up with the rumor that Pyoro told us to take with a grain of salt, but it was from Pyoro and also the Riddler. So I still think black and white remakes might be on the table, if not changed or altered. And that could be coming out this year. And if we get that, and let's say we get a 2D Zelda game, right? And then they have a Metroid Prime 2 and 3, and then there's a Mario Party game. All of a sudden, like, that's not that bad of kind of like a second half lineup for 2024, especially if we're already kind of like on the hype excitement train of, oh, Switch 2's coming out early next year. Oh, we got our first look at 3D Mario. We got our first look at next Mario Kart. We're getting information about Metroid Prime 4. Maybe they show off Luigi's Mansion 4 or the next title from Monolith Soft. Like, there's a lot of cool things we could still see this year, and and there could be some cool, fun things we could play in the second half of this year, leading up into next year, where we get to play these other exciting things we see. So I think 2024 may not be as bad as some people are thinking about. Here in the chat, Risky asks, what is when is the Donkey Kong theme park opening? I don't remember the exact date. I know it's supposed to happen spring, but I mean, I'm literally just gonna Google it for you. Donkey Kong Park opening date. This would be the Japan park, right? I think all we have is spring. But what's funny is we're already in spring. So spring is starting. So I imagine it's about to happen any moment now. Could be tomorrow. I bet we'll get it. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an announcement. We could see an announcement about the opening date in an April Direct. Like, oh, by the way, the Donkey Kong expansion is opening in 2 weeks. Like that could happen. So that wouldn't be surprise me. Or it could even happen on social media at some point this month. I would imagine that the open date's happening soon. Let's remind ourselves that there's going to be an investors meeting in May, and so I think that's something Nintendo's going to want to talk about as well. By that point. So we're in the season, sometime this season. Netweed09 adds me. Yes, Andre, it's true. I've been gaming since a link to the Past back in 2002. I've never seen anything like 2019's tier reveal. It was an amazing reveal. All right, looking through here. Well, let me point out this super chat. Anthony Nelson with a super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Anthony Nelson says, Mr. Restart. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Very kind of you, Anthony. The real J Stone asks me, will a CGI Metroid movie have its similar fantasy levels like a live action Zelda movie? Yeah, I think a Metroid movie is tricky because with Metroid you want it to be something that I almost want it to be like an HBO kind of exclusive. I mean, movies might be more mainstream. You could have it come out on HBO later, perhaps. But I guess like with Metroid, you want a mature theme, right? And the original Metroid was inspired by Alien, a horror movie, right? It's creepy, it's disturbing, it's not for children, and so there's a challenge with Metroid because it's not a big franchise. So can you even reasonably like put out a big budget movie, and then only gear it for a smaller audience? Those are two kind of tricky situations, right? Like if you do Metroid right, in terms of like like from a creative perspective, you can make the argument that it wouldn't appeal to the largest audience because you would want to make it very creepy, horrific, even. Now I think you could do that and make it PG-13. You don't have to go rated R. You don't have to have people getting dismembered, right? That's not how the Metroid games are, anyways. But they do have a lot of dark themes. They are meant to be creepy and eerie. So they can find a way to kind of mesh that, I think. PG-13. In terms of, I think they should go live action with Metroid, but with CGI mixed in, yeah, like with the monsters and stuff. Although, if they brought back like some classic costume monster design and some animatronics, like there could be some cool, amazing things done with that. There's a lot of things that the old movies used to do with things like that, and they were really good. CGI has just gone so good that kind of outweighs the need to do things like that. But it would be neat. I think we talk about a Metroid movie after Metroid Prime 4 becomes a big seller, if it does. If not, maybe we see something smaller later down the road, like on HBO Max or something like that. THX1138 with no super chat. What if Nintendo uses a system code name as the actual name for an extra system, like Nintendo NX? It worked for the Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS. I'm down. I mean, I think Nintendo NX sounds cool. Sounds cool, right? And then a lot of your games, you'd be like, oh, it's the Nintendo, it's a Super Mario NX, right? Metroid NX, F-Zero NX. Like, it sounds cool, but I don't think that's what they're gonna do. I'm not sure. the thing is, the DS tells us what a system is, right? It showcases. It goes back to what I was kind of talking about earlier for the name. It tells you what it's about. The Nintendo 3DS, it tells you what it's about. It's a play on, I guess, text or what have you, because it's the 3D effect it offers, which was the big gimmick, but also still being a dual screen system and a follow up to the DS. So it made sense. I don't know what the gimmick is for Switch, if there even is one that's worth kind of doing that. The Switchify. I'm done. We've kind of played this game already so many times trying to guess the name. I'm not gonna guess the name. I'm done with it. But I wouldn't mind a cool code name. Anyway, let's see here. We are approaching the end of the stream, guys. So final questions and chats, send them my way now. We'll be wrapping up in less than 15 minutes. But I want to make sure I talked about everything. So we talked about the Thursday dates for Nintendo games moving forward. We talked about the Switch 2 potential name leak. We talked about the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door House getting new content. Luigi's Mansion's happening. We did get the Lego announcement. There's going to be a Lego Mario Kart set, and that's happening in 2025. This may be tied to the video tomorrow, but I kind of think that this is somewhat of a soft tease or kind of a hint or a clue to a marketing buildup for the next Mario Kart. I mean, I think, you look at what Lego has done with Mario, that was tied to, leading up to the Mario movie. I don't think it's any secret that, the Lego Nintendo crossover, the Mario crossover, is part of kind of expanding the Mario brand, the Mario IP, and moving to other places, right? And then so having a Mario Kart set, I think, plays into that. The Zelda Lego sets were supposed to be coming. I think that ties into the Zelda movie. I think that ties into future Zelda releases. I think it's all a part of, spreading the brand. So I think, this Lego Mario Kart set, it's I guess, at face value, it's nothing too crazy, but I do think it's indicative that Nintendo is going to keep the Mario Kart conversation going. And I'd be surprised if we don't see the new Mario Kart next year. Really would. So that's going to be exciting. Risky, no, I did not watch the Oscars yesterday. It doesn't interest me. Even though I enjoy good movies, Oscars don't interest me. Luis Alberto Zazzati Jr. with the super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Asks, what about Netflix and Disney Plus? I'm assuming you're talking about where like a Metroid movie or some type of Nintendo something could come out. Well, the Mario movie is now on Netflix, but it at first it came out on Peacock. So it came out on Peacock first, but now a little bit later down the road it came out on Netflix. So I imagine that Netflix has a high opportunity to get a lot of these things. I'm not sure about Disney. Disney would have to be closely tied to something. But Netflix has a great chance to get a lot of future Nintendo movie releases. And beyond that, I think it would kind of come down to whoever Nintendo's partnering with at whatever sort of streaming app is tied to them. So in the case of Illumination and Universal, Peacock, so that's why that happened apparently. Other movie, it's tied to Sony. Does Sony have any rights or connections to a streaming app? They may, and I'm just not familiar with it. I don't know. But if they have some sort of deal, maybe one of you guys in the chat knows. But if Sony's tied to anything, maybe that's where the Zelda movie shows up first after it's out in theaters. Let's see here. Link Exists asks, do you think we see the next Monolith IP in the first or second year of Switch 2? Based off the Monolith Soft pattern, We are in a break year right now, this being 2024. So I would say that Switch 2 next year, I think there's a really good chance we see Microsoft's next project come out next year. And it makes a lot of sense to have it come out next year because that would tie very well into, it's the first year, right? They made sure to get Xenoblade Chronicles 2 out in the first year of Switch 1. And that became their best selling game ever, right? That they, in terms of like their own titles, the best-selling Xenoblade. Obviously, Monosoft has helped out with other bigger franchises like Splatoon, Animal Crossing, I think even Mario Kart, but definitely Zelda. And so those are all much bigger sellers, but they've just been support development for those studios. Right? They haven't been the main team. They've been the main team behind the Xenoblade games. And so whatever they decide to put out next, getting it out early on Switch 2 is valuable, including that first year, especially that first year. Now, that said, I don't want to say with 100% confidence that they stick to the pattern and it comes out 2025. I think there's a chance it gets pushed into 2020, pushed back to 2026. Let's point out that we saw that the Switch 2, based off reports, was pushed into early 2025. So, perhaps other things have been pushed back as well. That said, I'm going to lean 2025. Because they're very active. We don't go that long without seeing something from Microsoft. But if they're putting together something that's very ambitious and new, and they want to make sure it's polished and ready to go, maybe they wait just a little bit more, and it comes out 2026. I mean, let's think about this. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 released 2022. So conceivably, they could have something ready by the end of 2025. That would be 3.5 years later. Yeah, because it came out summer of 2022. But of course, the DLC came out early 2023. So that would be 2.5 years later after the DLC. But the DLC doesn't take as much resources. It's conceivable, but I'm going to lean 2025, 60-40. 40% maybe 2026. But I think there's a great chance we at least get an announcement for the next Microsoft title sometime next year. Wade Duel asks me, do you think we'll see a new Golden Sun for Switch 2? I wish. I'll tell you this, that Nintendo at least doing kind of like that cool double announcement of both games for NSO. It's a start. And that may be where it ends. It's just such a hard thing to predict, Wade. I'm not going to say no. I don't believe in never, right? But I don't. There's not much information that I'm privy to that leads him to think, oh yeah, new Golden Sun's happening soon. But I will also say that eventually we get these things. Eventually games get another chance. Advance Wars got another chance. We're getting Endless Ocean in May. So we do see Nintendo IP make comebacks. Golden Sun could happen at some point. But predicting it within the next 7 years, I mean, you would think within 7 years you get what you would want, right? But did we get a brand new Star Fox or a brand new Donkey Kong during the Switch 1 era? We didn't. At least not yet. Who knows what Nintendo has in store for the second half of this year, right? So it's possible. But the point is simply that we don't know. But I wouldn't lose all hope. Roddy Fazio, thank you for asking this. Actually, I intended on kind of talking about a little bit of this during the stream, and I haven't gotten a chance to. So Ronnie Fazio asks me, and let me see if I can put this up because I think this is kind of important. It's important to me at least. Let me scroll back to the bottom. See if I can find it. I want to show this on stream, but I can't. I just realized I had this one up for a while. Yeah. All right. So yeah, Ronnie Fazio asked, I'm sure someone has asked you this, but were you a Dragon Ball guy at all? Either way, rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. So for those that don't know, Akira Toriyama is the creator of Dragon Ball, The entire Dragon Ball series, Dragon Ball Z, Super, all that, right? There's the mangas, the movies. There's so many video games. I'm extremely excited for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. But not only Dragon Ball, they've played a role with Dragon Quest and all those designs. There's a reason they look like Dragon Ball characters. It's because Akira Toriyama was behind the designs initially. Same thing for one of the greatest games ever made, and Chrono Trigger. There's been so many projects that Akira Toriyama has been a part of, and recently it was announced that Akira Toriyama passed away. I think he had some sort of was it a hematoma? He had some sort of blood clot. Passed away at 68, and I was actually live streaming last Thursday. We were playing the Princess Peach Showtime demo, and I was trying to finish Penny's Big Breakaway, but then the news broke to me. I think it was actually Rizky in the chat that pointed out, and at first, Rizky, I thought you were joking. Like, that was one of those things I just wouldn't believe, but then I looked it up, and I was like, yeah, he did. And yes, Blue Dragon, the designs were by Toriyama as well. He's done a lot of projects like that, video games and animes and shows. The biggest one being Dragon Ball. And so he was about to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. He was going to receive it this month. And so he passed away at 68. And, on the live stream, if you go back to the end of that live stream, I almost cried on the live stream. I don't know this person at all. I don't know this person, right? But Akira Toriyama's works have played such a significant role in my life. I loved watching Dragon Ball. I still watch Dragon Ball. I loved watching it as a kid. It was one of the most exciting things ever as a kid. But it's become such a big piece to our culture. And I think, a lot of people who aren't a fan of Dragon Ball may not realize just how important Akira Toriyama is. Well, so just to put this into perspective, it's bigger than Dragon Ball, right? Because what Dragon Ball did, it popularized anime in the West, right? It was a big pivotal piece to the surge of, let's just call it, nerd culture, right? It helped to make anime and video games a lot more mainstream. I think it's a big part of our culture, and it's a big part of who we are as a society today. It's played such a vital role in that, more so than I think people realize. I kind of love it when I see people talk about things and other, like, politics, sports, all sorts of wakes of life and industries, where they make references to memes and I know where those memes came from, right? Like, I know about, like, memes made by Reggie, for example, My Body is Ready, and people are using that in other places. Or in the case of Dragon Ball, this isn't even my final form. That's from Dragon Ball. But you'll see people who probably have never even seen Dragon Ball 4 make references to these quotes. Like, it's played such a significant part to our culture. I just don't think people realize just how significant it is, and just how deeply it permeates kind of everyone's life. And so it's huge. Akira Toriyama created something that has changed our world. And that's crazy, right? We're talking about a comic book. But that's just how impactful it's become over these decades. And so his legacy is immeasurable, I would say. And so it was sad for me to hear that, because I don't even think 68 is old. Obviously, 68 isn't young, but dying at 68, I wouldn't say is like a normal death. That is, he still had time. He was still working on projects. He wasn't done yet. And so, it's sad. I about to cry again. Damn, I'm not gonna cry live on camera. That's not happening. I just he was a fun he was very quiet, right? He wasn't interested in the fame, right? We didn't even find out about his death until apparently a week later, once they decided to announce it to the public. Like, they took care of the funeral and everything beforehand. No one knew. Like I just really enjoyed how he conducted himself, or respected, I should say, right? Like he wasn't into the fame. He had a very private, secret life. He enjoyed his life with his family and friends, from what we gather. And whenever I seen him in the articles he's written or letters, he's always had this personality to him, right? His own kind of thing. He's his own person, right? And so I really, really respected. I respect the man. Like I respect him as a creator. I respect him as a person. I I can only make so many assumptions on his character, but I have no reason to think anything but the highest of his character. And so, we lost a good one. But he left an incredible impact on our world, and I still don't even think I fully voiced just how important it is. Um, like it's more impactful than I think any of us realize. So yeah. Rest in peace. I don't. For those that are curious, like Dragon Ball is like not gonna. I don't think Dragon Ball is gonna end. I think they recently put out news that they've changed Dragon Ball Daima, like how it's gonna be airing. So there's gonna be changes and adjustments, but I don't think the Dragon Ball series is dead. Like there are other creatives that are behind Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball became more than Toriyama. And the same applies to Dragon Quest. Like none of these things are. I don't think any of these things are ending. And I'm not even sure they should. Right? In a way, it's kind of cool to think that these things he created will live on. Right? And they'll kind of continue to push his legacy. So that's exciting. It's exciting stuff. I feel like that's not greatly worded. It's nice to think that his legacy is going to continue, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, that's pretty much my pennies on the circumstance. Yeah. Not gonna cry. I'm good. Not crying. I'm not gonna cry. I'm good. Thank you. Not crying. Every time, like it's almost there. I feel it. Yeah. I will say, kind of going back a little bit to the impact, right? A little bit of kind of like how I conduct myself, right? I sort of like this idea, like we're talking about video games, right? I like, and yeah, a lot of you watching, I like anime. I think that's pretty clear at this point, right? I think these things, are things that people in general should be able to enjoy. But growing up, they were, it's a part of nerd culture, right? And these things have become more mainstream, more commonly accepted. Toriyama had a lot to do with that. And kind of like the way I kind of live my life, right? Like I feel like video games, they shouldn't, I don't like, for example, one of the reasons why I don't like the term gamer, sometimes I have to use the term just when I'm trying to say something, but I don't like thinking of gamer as like, oh, we're gamers, like we're a minority, right? We got to band together. Like I don't like looking at it like that. I don't like to identify myself as a gamer. I like to identify myself as who I am. And part of who I am is, yeah, I like to play games. I like to enjoy escapes. I like to compete in different ways. And this goes beyond video games. Really what I think is that these mediums are just other ways to kind of enjoy life. And I think they should be accepted by a wider range of people. And so that's kind of how I conduct myself. And I think Toriyama is arguably one of the most important people in leading and pushing that. Maybe not intentionally, but his creations have helped to push that. And so it's I think, there's a lot of things that are happening in this world, but it's one of those things that have changed our world for the better, right? There's a lot of dark in this world, but the works of Akira Toriyama have created a lot of good. So yeah, that's it. Now I am now done with my pennies on the Akira Toriyama. I think he was an amazing person who lived one of the most incredible lives. And I am not going to cry because it definitely gets me sad when I think about it. But he lived a good life, from what I understand, at least. Yeah. Anyways, I'm not sure if there's anything else to say about the stream. I think we kind of covered everything. I think I mentioned the Mario Kart stuff already. I think so. Link exists asked at me. When do you think we get Sparking Zero on Switch 2? Rest in peace to Akira Toriyama, one of the greats. 100%. I don't know. We eventually got Dragon Ball Fighters on Switch down the road, right? So I imagine they'll eventually put it on Switch too. When it happens, tough to say. Maybe they get a part of the launch window, right? When it coincides with DLC, it's possible. Captain Doge, I hear that your dad has a blood clot. I'm praying for you, buddy. Praying for your family. Stay strong. I can imagine it's tough, but you got friends here. Link Exists asked me, when in the Switch 2 life cycle do you think we see the next Smash Bros? Early. I say by the second year. You think about Brawl. Smash Bros. Brawl came out because the Wii came out holiday 2006. Brawl came out January 2008. So in a year and a half, in less than a year and a half from release, they came out with Brawl. And then Smash Ultimate came out holiday 2000, December 2018. It's a little bit more than a year and a half. I'll stick to. No, there are some examples of Smash taking longer, like Smash for Wii U and 3DS, right? I think Smash for Wii U came out like a little bit. Well, the thing is, everything on the Wii U took too long. September 2014, which is actually Wii U came out holiday 2012. So still within 2 years. So I'll stick with that. I think within 2 years, we will see the release for the next Smash Bros. On the Switch 2. So Switch 2 comes out early 2005. I think the latest, by holiday 2026, we will see the release for the next Smash Bros. Game. Yeah. All right. This will be my last question I'll take. So Ronnie Fazio adds me, when the Switch 2 launches, will we see more third-party games get day and date with the other consoles? Well, I think I don't know the answer to that, right? Obviously, you're asking my opinion. I just feel like I need to clarify this a lot. I don't know, right? But I think there's going to be a lot of third-party games that they're going to miss the boat on because they'll be coming out this year. But they still may want those games to be made available. So, a lot of games aren't going to be day and date. But I think there will be more day and date games. I think games like Monster Hunter Wilds. Is it Wild or Wilds? I think it's Monster Hunter. I don't know. I'm just going to look it up. Monster Hunter Wilds, right? That game's coming out 2025. So I would say that I think that game has a good chance to be a day and date, but it depends on the launch date for Switch 2. So potentially not, but I would expect it to come out soon for that, or like it would be available pretty early on for Switch 2. And I just in general expect that there will be better third-party support for Switch 2 overall. So there will be more day and date titles, not like immediately. And maybe not as much as like PS5, Xbox, but definitely better than Switch. That's what I kind of think based off everything we've heard. Based off the Matrix demo, based off the Breath of the Wild demo, based off the rumors of Monster Hunter Wilds coming to the Switch 2. With everything we've heard from what NVIDIA is bringing to the table with DLSS, I think the Switch 2 will be a better position to have better third-party support than the Switch. And I think part of that will also simply be because I think if Nintendo's following up the Switch with, and they're kind of pretty much just doing a very similar thing, sticking to the formula. Developers will probably be thinking, well, you look at how strong Switch sales were. Let's get started early on for this console. Like for example, EA pretty much didn't support the system too much. I think EA will support the system a lot better immediately. But they were, well, I mean, this is not even a think thing. This is something we know. Microsoft is now contractually obligated to be putting Call of Duty on Switch, and I don't think it's going to be a once in a while thing. It's going to be or Nintendo platforms, so probably pretty much only Switch 2. Maybe somehow get something Call of Duty related for Switch 1 this year, but like there's just going to be better third-party support overall on Switch 2, I think. Anyways, that is it for the evening. Thank you everyone for stopping by. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.